اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ياسين والقرآن الحكيم إنك لمن المرسلين على صراط مستقيم تنزيل العزيز الرحيم لتنذر قوما ما أنذر آباؤهم فهم غافلون لقد حق القول على أكثرهم فهم لا يؤمنون إنا جعلنا في أعناقهم أغلالا فهي إلى الأذقان فهم مقمحون وجعلنا من بين أيديهم سدا ومن خلفهم سدا فأغشيناهم فلا يبصرون وسواء عليهم أنذرتهم أم لم تنذرهم لا يؤمنون إنما تنذر من اتبع الذكر وخشي الرحمن بالغيب فبشره بمغفرة وأجر كريم إنا نحن نحيي الموتى ونكتب ما قدموا وآثارهم وكل شيء أحصيناه في إمام مبين واضرب لهم مثلا أصحاب القرية إذ جاءها المرسلون إذ أرسلنا إليهم اثنين فكذبوهما فعززنا بثالث فقالوا إنا إليكم مرسلون قالوا ما أنتم إلا بشر مثلنا وما أنزل الرحمن من شيء إن أنتم إلا تكذبون قالوا ربنا يعلم إن لئن لم تنتهوا لنرجمنكم وليمسنكم منا عذاب عليم قالوا طائركم معكم أن ذكرتم بل أنتم قوم مسرفون وجاء من أقصى المدينة رجل يسعى قال يا قوم اتبعوا المرسلين اتبعوا من لا يسألكم أجرا وهم مهتدون وما لي لا أعبد الذي فطرني وإليه ترجعون أتخذ من دونه آلهة إن يردني الرحمن بضر لا تغني عني شفاعتهم شيئا ولا ينقذون إني إذا لفي ضلال مبين إني آمنت بربكم فاسمعون قيل ادخل الجنة قال يا قوم اتبعوا المرسلين بما غفر لي ربي وجعلني من المكرمين وما أنزلنا على قومه من بعده من جند من السماء وما كنا منزلين إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم خامدون يا حسرة على العباد ما يأتيهم من رسول إلا كانوا به يستهزئون ألم يروا كم أهلكنا قبلهم من القرون أنهم إليهم لا يرجعون وإن كل لما جميع لدينا مهترون وآية لهم الأرض الميتة أحييناها وأخرجنا منها حبا فمنه يأكلون وجعلنا فيها جنات من نخيل وعناب وفجرنا فيها من العيون ليأكلوا من ثمره وما عملت أيديهم أفلا يشكرون سبحان الذي خلق الأزواج كلها مما تنبت الأرض ومن أنفسهم ومما لا يعلمون قدرناه منازل حتى عاد كالأرجون القديم لها أن تدرك القمر ولا الليل سابق النهار وكل وآية لهم أن حملنا ذريتهم في الفلك المشحون وخلقنا لهم من مثله ما يركبون وإن نشأ نغرقهم فلا شريك لهم ولا هم ينقذون إلا رحمة منا ومتاعا إلى حين وإذا قيل لهم اتقوا ما بين أيديكم وما خلفكم لعلكم ترحمون وما تأتيهم من آية من آيات ربهم معرضين وإذا قيل لهم أنفقوا مما رزقكم الله قال الذين كفروا للذين آمنوا أن نطعم من لو يشاء الله أطعمه إن أنتم إلا في ضلال مبين ويقولون متى هذا الوعد إن كنتم صادقين ما ينظرون إلا صيحة واحدة تأخذه وهم يخصمون فلا يستطيعون توصيون ونفخ في الصور فإذا هم من الأجداث إلى ربهم ينسلون قالوا يا ويلنا من بعثنا من مرقدنا هذا ما وعد الرحمن وصدقة فإذا هم جميع لدينا محضرون فاليوم لا تظلمون نفس شيئا ولا تجزون إلا ما كنتم تعملون إن أصحاب الجنة اليوم في شغل فاكهون هم وأزواجهم في ظلال على الأرائك متكئون لهم فيها فاكهة دعون سلام قولا من رب رحيم وامتازوا اليوم أيها المجرمون ألم أعهد إليكم يا بني آدم أن لا تعبدوا الشيطان إنه لكم عدو مبين وأن اعبدوني هذا صراط مستقيم ولقد أزل منكم جبلا كثيرا أفلم تكونوا تعقلون هذه جهنم التي كنتم توعدون اصلوها اليوم بما كنتم تكفرون اليوم نختم على أفواههم وتكلمنا أيديهم وتشهد أرجلهم بما كانوا يكسبون ولو نشاء لتمسنا على أعينهم فاستبقوا الصراط فأنى يبصرون ولو نشاء لمسخناهم على مكانتهم فما استطاعوا مضيا ولا يرجعون ومن نعمره ننكس في الخلق أفلا يعقلون وما علمناه شعرا وما ينبغي له إن هو إلا ذكر وقرآن مبين لينذر من كان حيا ويحق القول على الكافرين أولم يروا أنا خلقنا لهم مما عملت أيدينا أنعاما فهم لها مالكون وذللناهم لهم أفلا يشكرون واتخذوا من دون الله آلهة لعلهم ينصرون لا يستطيعون نصرهم وهم لهم جند محضرون فلا يحزنك قولهم إنا نعلم ما يسرون وما يعلنون أولم يرى الإنسان أنا خلقناهم من نطفة فإذا هو خصيم مبين وضرب لنا مثلا ونسي خلقه قال من يحيي العظام وهي رميم قل يحييها الذي أنشأها أول مرة وهو بكل خلق عليم الذي جعل لكم من الشجر الأخضر نارا فإذا أنتم منه توقدون أوليس الذي خلق السماوات والأرض بقادر على أن يخلق مثلهم بلى وهو الخلاق العليم إنما أمره إذا أراد شيئا أن يقول له كن فيكون فسبحان الذي بيده ملكوت كل شيء وإليه ترجعون صدق الله العلي العظيم اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد سورة فاتحة.
صلوات على محمد وآل محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. یہ خط میں شاہ نے لکھا حبیب آ جاؤ، یہ خط میں شاہ نے لکھا حبیب آ جاؤ، تمہارا دوست ہے تنہا، تمہارا دوست ہے تنہا، حبیب آ جاؤ، یہ خط میں شاہ نے لکھا حبیب آ جاؤ، یہ خط میں شاہ نے لکھا حبیب آ جاؤ، شہید کیسے ہوا وہ بتاؤ گے آ کر، تم حال مسلم میں بے کس سناؤ گے آ کر، رقیہ تکتی ہے راستہ، رقیہ تکتی ہے راستہ، حبیب آ جاؤ، یہ خط میں شاہ نے لکھا حبیب آ جاؤ، یہ خط میں شاہ نے لکھا، حبیب آ جاؤ، لگاؤ اس سے بھی اندازے میری غربت کے، جہاں پہ ابن علی لکھنا تھا وہاں میں نے دیا ہے ماں کا حوالہ، دیا ہے ماں کا حوالہ، حبیب آ جاؤ، یہ خط میں شاہ نے لکھا، حبیب آ جاؤ، گوارا کر نہیں سکتی حسین کی غیرات، تمہاری زوجہ کی چادر کو لوٹ لے امت، تم اس کو چھوڑ کے کوفہ، تم اس کو چھوڑ کے کوفہ، حبیب آ جاؤ، یہ خط میں شاہ نے لکھا، حبیب آ جاؤ، یہ خط میں شاہ نے لکھا، حبیب آ جاؤ، در بطول دوبارہ جلایا جائے گا، تمہارے دوست پہ خنجر چلایا جائے گا، نہیں ہے وقت زیادہ، نہیں ہے وقت زیادہ، حبیب یہ خط میں شاہ نے لکھا، حبیب آ جاؤ، یہ خط میں شاہ نے لکھا، حبیب آ جاؤ، یہ خط نہیں اس بہنوں کی آرزو سمجھو، ہمارے لفظوں کی زینب کی گفتگو سمجھو، بہن یہ کہتی ہے بھیا، بہن یہ کہتی ہے بھیا، حبیب آ جاؤ، یہ خط میں شاہ نے لکھا، حبیب آ جاؤ، یہ خط میں شاہ نے لکھا، حبیب آ جاؤ، بہن نے اس کو تکلم جو بھائی سمجھا تھا، پکاری شام غریباں میں ثانیے زہرا، ہمارا لوٹا ہے پردہ، ہمارا لوٹا ہے پردہ، حبیب آ جاؤ، یہ خط میں شاہ نے لکھا، حبیب آ جاؤ، یہ خط میں شاہ نے لکھا، حبیب آ جاؤ، صلوات۔
بر محمد وآل محمد صلوات۔ اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. زہرا کے بھرے گئے میں تباہ ہی کا سما ہے. زہرا کے بھرے گئے میں تباہ ہی کا سما ہے. اٹھتا ہوا شبیر کے اٹھتا ہوا شبیر کے خیموں سے دعا ہے. زہرا کے بھرے گئے میں تباہ ہی کا سما ہے. قاصد سے یہ کہہ دو میں سنا یہ خط صغرا قاصد سے یہ کہہ دو میں سنا یہ خط صغرا لپٹی ہوئی اکبر کے کلے جیسے سینہ ہے. گر گر کے سنبھلتے ہی چلے آتے ہیں شبیر. گر گر کے سنبھلتے ہی چلے آتے ہیں شبیر. اے درد ٹھہر لاش علی اکبر کی جواں ہے. کیوں زینب و کلثوم کی چھنتی ہے ردا کیوں زینب و کلثوم کی چھنتی ہے ردا لٹتی ہے نبی زادیاں عباس کہاں ہے. اٹھتا ہوا شبیر کے اٹھتا ہوا شبیر کے خیموں سے دعا ہے. زہرا کے بھرے گئے میں تباہ ہی کا سما ہے. اور محمد وآل محمد صلوات. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. سورة المباركة الفاتحة.
Respected elders, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum. Brothers and sisters, just carrying on the conversation from last night. I mentioned again, and many of you are aware of this, this is not going to be our typical normal Muharram suffer in terms of what we do and how we carry our programs out. Like I said yesterday, this is a blessing. It's an extra that what we're able to do here. Again, this was not the original plan, right? We would have been home watching on our TV screens or our computers. But again, alhamdulillah, we were blessed and we're able to gather here in these important moments of commemorating the tragedy of Karbala. That said, we are doing our best again to accommodate many of their traditions and things that we're accustomed to. Seems to be some misunderstandings on many different things, and I want to clarify that tonight. And again, I apologize in advance for my tone because sometimes I just feel whatever we do, sometimes it feels like it is not enough. All right, we are doing our best. Okay, so a couple things I want to make note of. I was walking around last night, and again, don't take offense to this. Our job here is to make sure, my number one priority is make sure everyone here, to the best of our ability, is kept safe and healthy from this virus. Okay, I don't know. This virus can be here in one form, it can be here in many forms. There's a lot of people here that may not even know that they have it, be asymptomatic. We don't know. My job is to make sure we're all safe. And if I recall, we did send out an email, and this comes straight from our ulama. They have advised us there are two types of liability. One, obviously, is a legal liability that, yes, we have a waiver form, and you've all accepted that responsibility that you're voluntarily here. God forbid something happens, you understand what that means, right? Because you voluntarily chose to come here. There's a second responsibility for those who are hosting and putting on these programs, as well as for those of us who are walking around here that may not be complying with the simple things that we've asked for, right? A couple of things is that, one, we've asked that you all seat with your own household. Right? I understand that we are away from each other, we miss each other, we get a chance to come meet and greet, that's fine. But when we're watching the program or listening to the program, please sit with your household. The other thing I noticed last night walking around, many of us were talking in groups. And again, we're not saying don't do that. I understand the need to socialize, meet and greet everyone. But if you're doing so, very simple, please wear your mask. Okay, that's the least you can do. You're not protecting yourself, you're protecting the other person from getting ill. Okay, that's the thing. And again, there's another liability which we don't talk about much, and there's no form you can sign. Right? And that's the liability that each of us have a responsibility to make sure that we don't cause harm on other people. There's a liability in the afterlife that if we do that, we are held accountable for anybody getting sick and suffering, and worse, God forbid, if the situation reaches that other scenario where they're no longer here with us. And that's the responsibility that myself and this committee have to ensure your safety. Because again, yes, you have signed your waivers. Yes, you've accepted that responsibility, but that's fine. We have a responsibility to make sure that we don't create an environment that you get sick. And we are accountable for that. And that's why we're enforcing the rules that we've enforced. Okay, so please understand. Second thing I want to comment on, there's a lot of chatter. There's a lot of talk, right? And I've said this at the AGM last week. I'm going to reiterate this point again tonight. There's a lot of rumors, brothers and sisters. A lot of talk, right? That virus is probably more dangerous to our communities as a whole. You've seen what it's done, how it's divided people in other communities. That's a dangerous virus, brothers and sisters. Some of these fake news, rumors, and things that go out there need to be controlled. And if you're hearing things you're not sure, especially as it relates to matters relating to what we do here, contact me directly. I'll always set the record straight for you. I'll tell you to you as it is. All right? And if you see people consistently complaining, consistently spreading gossip and lies, brothers and sisters, I'm asking you, because I love you and I don't want you to be held accountable for the day of judgment of that sin, social distance yourselves from these individuals. Please, for your own benefit and your families. All right? Again, I apologize for my tone, but it's just getting a little out of hand. Now, a couple of things that we did tonight, a little bit different. Like I said, each day we're looking to improve how we have this set up here. One, we do have a station here on the side for safe matam. What I mean by safe matam is later this evening when matam begins, we have asked just a handful of people to come up front and support the reciter in jawab, in answering and supporting the reciter. Everyone else, we're going to ask them, there's a bunch of lights you'll see on the ground, little solar lights. We have spaced them out to allow for safe matam. we ask everybody face here the screen when you're standing in front of these lights. When you go down this hill here to my right or your left, you'll see the little lights and need everybody standing here. Brother Riaz Karmali and Brother Salim Kak will be monitoring. Now, as you're doing your matam, we kindly ask that you wear your mask. Even though these lights are spread apart, we still want you to wear your mask, again, for everyone's protection. Other thing we did this evening, you'll see as you're coming in to help with the parking, we have additional parking volunteers. We've also set up 2 lanes on the way out to ease and try to get people out as fast as possible when we leave this evening. So again, please follow the instructions of the parking volunteers. And again, we'll be dismissing everybody by row. Again, we're trying to get everybody out here as fast as possible. But if everybody clusters, it'll only take longer. So please, again, follow the instructions of those who are guiding you. As well, I know many, again, just reading, I know there was a message from the table in the front. Many of you have not filled out the waiver forms. They are going to be enforcing those. So again, in order to be here, we do need those waiver forms completed. So again, I thank everyone for your cooperations. I hope, again, you understand the message I'm here trying to deliver. It is about keeping everybody safe. Please don't take that personally. And I appreciate everyone's cooperation. Let's close with the Surah Fatiha for all our marhumeens.
Let us all please recite Amma Yujibu for the safety and victory of all our brothers and sisters around the world, for the safety of our holy shrines, for the quick reappearance of Imam Sahibu Zaman alayhi salam, from the safety of coronavirus for all humanity, and for Shafa of Sajjad Jafar, Sayyid Muhammad Haider Rizvi, Nazir Jeffrey, and for Shafa of all Maris. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Amma yujibul mustarra iza da'a wa yakshifu su. 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 Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
رحم الله من قرأ سورة المباركة الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا. اللهم صل على محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم فوضوا أمري إلى الله إن الله بصير بالعباد ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل ونعم المولى ونعم النصير والصلاة والسلام والتحية والإكرام على الرسول المسدد المصطفى الأمجد المحمود الأحمد الذي سمي في السماء بأحمد وفي الأرض بأبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل على محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين المنتجبين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا اللهم صل على محمد وقل رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي أما بعد قال الله تبارك وتعالى في كتاب الكريم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الدين عند الله الإسلام صدق الله العلي العظيم زينوا مجالسكم بالصلوات على محمد وآل محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. My respected elders, brothers and sisters in Iman, in Allentown, in North America and Europe and throughout the globe, Salamun alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Question: who am I? We've been discussing the concept of worldview, and we're building on our topic in order to get clarity about our world. You see, this question gets at the root of who we are, and it gets at the root of the future of our generations. It gets at the root of whether the message of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam will continue in our generations or not. And based on this fact and based on this reality, it may be difficult to find a more important subject. It may be more difficult to find a more important topic. Why? Because this question gets at the essence. We are told Ibrahim alayhi salam, Abraham makes a dua. Ibrahim alayhi salam, what dua does he make to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? The one who's befriended Allah, the one who has a close proximity. And from his line, you will find Musa and Isa and Rasul A'zam. You will find the prophets from the line of Ibrahim. The Abrahamic faiths all revere Ibrahim. This Ibrahim is praying to his Lord. What does he pray for? He prays that his lineage, his descendants are on the same path, on the righteous path. When you examine the lives of the scholars of the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, the ulama, they focus on the same thing. They do a dua and they do a prayer that the people from their lineage, from their descendants are all from the same belief system. So where does your thought come from? Where does my thought come from? We're told there's a moment in time where the Holy Prophet, in the 40th year of his physical life, he comes forward and he makes an announcement on the mount in front of all of the people. What does he say? He says, "Oh people, if I were to tell you there was an army on the other side of this mountain, would you accept? Will you believe me?" At that very moment, we're told that they respond, "We have never known you to be anything but Sadiq and Amin." Rasulullah is sharing his worldview. He says, "Then I am telling you, I, this person that you have accepted, that you have not known me to be anything except Sadiq and Amin, I am telling you that there is no God but God, La ilaha illallah, and that I am his messenger." He's explaining a worldview and he's asking them to shift their worldview. Worldview is this idea of ru'yatul qawniya. This is the Arabic word for worldview. Or in Farsi or in Persian, jahan bini. If you know Urdu, it's similar concept. That how do I see the world? Jahan, the world, how do I see it, view it? With what eye do I see it? That impacts every aspect of your life. Why? I want to look at this so we understand what are the viewpoints that make up how I see the world. And based on how I see the world, I will be able to determine whether I am a Muhammadi, whether I am a Haidari, whether I am a Husseini, or otherwise. What am I? That view will tell me the answer to that question. Therefore, in the brief moments that we have together tonight, I want to look at this question and I want to look at, number one, what is it that science can tell us, and some of the studies that have been conducted tell us about how people view the world today. And secondly, I want to see what is Islam's worldview according to Allama Tabatabai and other scholars. What is the Islamic viewpoint? I then want to look at the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam and their worldview based on their actions and what they told us in their lifetime. I then want to look at what are some of the karamat and mu'jizat of Ahlul Bayt as told to us by the scholars that have happened in that time and in this time, and how we can understand a worldview based on that. I then want to look at what was the worldview of some of the companions of Sayyid al-Shuhada and how we can learn and get jewels from that to implement directly in our lives. These are the stages of our analysis tonight, inshallah. From the bottom of your heart, wherever you may be, here in Allentown or across the globe, send a salawat on Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. The first level of the analysis comes forward in the following. The Barna Group is a group that conducts research out of California in the United States. Please pay close attention to this to understand the world in which we exist and how we can understand what makes up worldview. The Barna Group in California did a study on Christians who attend church on a regular basis. People who attend church on a regular basis, they wanted to see what is their belief system. Is it based on the Bible? Is it based on Christian teachings? And is it based on the worldview of Christianity or not? If it is not based on the worldview of Christianity, if it is not based on the worldview of the Bible, then what is it based on? Based on the conclusion of the Barna Group, they found that of the people who attend church regularly, only 17%, 17% of the people who attend church regularly actually believe completely and wholly in a biblical worldview, in a Christian worldview. 17%. Now, that begs the question, what about the rest of the 83%? What is happening with the rest of the 83% of the belief system of Christians who are attending, let alone those who are not attending the church on a regular basis? You will understand this in terms of relating this to Muslims in our communities as well. So what did they find? They conducted a survey, and they gave a survey to the participants in the community, and they asked them a series of questions. When they asked them these questions, they asked them to help understand what is your view. For example, they asked, do you believe that all gods are the same? This was one set of questions that they asked. Or for example, they said that, do you think that if someone does good, they will reap the benefit of what they do automatically? Or for example, they asked them, do you believe that everyone should have equal rights to, for example, property? Do you believe that everyone should have equal rights to things of this nature? And then they said, for example, do we need religion in the modern world? When they asked these questions, please pay close attention to what I'm about to say. They found that over 60%, 61% to be exact, of the respondents said that they believed in ideas. They didn't know it, but the researcher said they believed in ideas which are called new spirituality. A worldview that is called new spirituality. By the way, before I get into this, they found that there were certain differences based on the Christian respondents to the survey. What do I mean? They found that Gen X and millennials, they were 8 times more likely to have different worldviews compared to their baby boomers before them. Gen X are those people born from 1965 to 1980, the generation before millennials. 1980 onwards, millennials. They were 8 times, 800% more likely to believe worldviews that were not biblical, that were not Christian in nature, the Barna Group says. So there was a big difference between the Gen X and millennials. Furthermore, they found that between men and women, there was a different belief system. What did they find? They found that men were 2 times more likely to believe in different views than the Bible and Christianity compared to women. They found people who live in cities, New York, Los Angeles, Miami, Chicago, Houston, London, for example, all these types of cities, they had much more views that were new world views, that were worldviews that were not part of the Bible, that were not part of Christianity. So what were the main views that they found? Number one was new spirituality. When they asked the participants, new spirituality is this movement that says that all people believe in one God. We are to be one with God. These are phenomenons that are found not in Christianity, but in other belief systems, such as Hinduism, for example, such as Buddhism, for example, and other dimensions of the equation. Please understand all this data, because once we understand this foundation, we will come to a very important question. The next level of the researchers found, very interestingly, that they found that those people who believed in postmodernism, those Christians, by the way, we're talking about people who are attending regularly. We're not just talking about anybody for that matter. What else did they believe in? They believed in ideas of Marxism. They believed in ideas of secularism. They believed in ideas of socialism, whether they realized it or not, whether they implemented it in their lives or not. What was this being said here? In fact, they found that 36% of the respondents believed adamantly in this idea of Marxism. Marxism? 29% believed in direct secularism. Secularism meaning we don't need religion in society. These were people attending church. Why am I saying this? The question I want you to ask yourself, and I want to ask myself, what is my worldview and what makes up my worldview? Even if I'm attending, is it 100% Islamic? Is it scientific? Because 54% of the respondents believed in scientism, rationalism. Although these may not be wrong in and of itself, but the question, if you remember my previous lectures, there's a concept of a drift in society. You understand a drift? The drift is that element of society where you're in a body of water. Allow me to refresh your memory. When you're in a body of water, such as a lake, such as a river, such as an ocean, and you're not by the shore, you're in the middle of the water, floating. Whether you realize it or not, that water has a drift, and it takes you with it, whether you realize where you're going or not. Where is our society taking us? That's a question we have to ask fundamentally. What's my worldview? Is it that I'm against science? Am I against evolution? Am I against Darwinism? Here's the answer that I'm giving you. Please pay close attention. Understand this parable. We're told this comes from the East. This originates in India and has been used by Sufis, mystics, people are spiritual throughout generations. The Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam tell us that ilm, knowledge, is the lost property of a mu'min. You should obtain it from wherever you can get it. We will tie all of this back to the Ahlul Bayt, but understand this example very quickly. We go to university. I myself have done this. Many of you have gone through university and are still going. It's a beautiful initiative. We go through university, we go through academics, we learn and we understand our modern world. Remember last night I said something and I want you to connect the dots here. There was a movement in the last 200 years of colonialism. In this movement, England and France established schools of Orientalism to study the East from the lens of the West, if you recall. There was another movement that I'm not saying, by the way, These are experts at Georgetown University and George Washington University and SUNY Stony Brook and many other institutions across America who are saying this, not me, not my word, so don't blame me. They said when England and France began to colonize the region and they began to do things such as splitting up certain places, such as, for example, Balochistan and Sistan, Ayatollah Sistani, where his ancestors are from, it's a province. That province was divided by the colonial powers, half in Iran, half in modern-day Pakistan. What was the reason? No one knows. The same reason that Pakistan was divided on one side and Bangladesh on the east side, they were part of one country historically. Why it was divided this way, no one knows. The colonial powers did it. They decided to do it that way. So these things happened. This is what I want you to note. Where did your frame of mind come from? It's possible that you and I have been intellectually colonized before we realized it. Not my words, the words of academics. What do they say? There was a movement of Christian missionaries and convents that happened throughout Africa, throughout the Middle East, and throughout India, including Pakistan and Bangladesh, historically. I'm building on what the worldview has happened in the last 200 years. These convents, these missionaries started teaching and educating people in Africa, in the Middle East, and in Asia. They had a goal. One of the goals was to convert the populations that existed there to Christianity. Make people from Africa, North and South of Africa, East and West of Africa, make them Christian. Make people in the Middle East Christian. Make people in, for example, India, modern day Pakistan and modern day Bangladesh, make them Christian. Now, the researchers say they failed in this goal. They were not able to convert people, but they highlight that they were very successful in something else. What was that something else? What they were very successful in doing is they were able to change the worldview of the people in Africa, the people in the Middle East, and the people in India. Through what? Through education. Through the process of convents, they established the best education systems in those regions. When they established the best institutions in those regions, the intelligentsia, the intellectuals, the wealthy classes began to send their children to those institutions. So what is a very common example of this, and a very popular example of this? In the Middle East, there's an institution called the American University in Beirut. The American University in Beirut in Lebanon, which suffered a very heinous and terrible attack and is in our thoughts and our prayers, especially in this time. This American University in Beirut was suffering, which is the city is suffering, went through a time where they established the first top tier university there. Do you know what the original name of the American University in Beirut was? It was called the Syrian, because Syria and Lebanon were one province at that time, the Syrian Protestant College. Therefore, I don't want to get too deep philosophically. The researchers say all of the most intellectual people began to go to these institutions, and what happened is society followed because these people ruled society. So what ended up happening was the Muslim world, the Eastern world, the African world, they stopped having their own culture, their own belief system, and they adopted, although they did not convert, they adopted that worldview. Now the question I ask you and I ask myself is this: how much of our worldview is that of the Quran? How much of that is of our worldview is that of the Ahlul Bayt? How much of our worldview is that of Islam? And how much are other things? Now, by the way, there is no doubt that science has given us modern benefits. There's no doubt. There's no doubt that we've gotten tremendous benefits in our modern world. But the question is, what's the ethos? How can we connect everything together? Allow me to give you an example. This is the parable that I wanted to share with you that originates in India. What happened? There were some blind men, 6 in particular, who were in a town. When they were in this town, these individuals, there was a creature in front of them. They were blind, therefore they could not see. But they wanted to figure out what is this creature. When they wanted to understand what is this creature, one man stands in front and he begins to touch the elephant. When he begins to touch the elephant, he says, I am certain that this thing that is in front of me is a wall. The other man steps up, he can't see, he touches it, and he touches one aspect, and he says, I am certain this is a spear. Another man comes up and he says, he begins to touch it, he says, I'm certain this is a snake. Another one comes forward and he begins to touch the beast. He says, I am certain this is a fan. You know the old fan, the hand fan in the heat that you use? I'm certain it's a fan. The next man comes forward, the 5th man, he touches the beast. He says, I am certain this is a tree. Certain, the tree, trunk, 100%. The 6th man comes forward and he says, he feels the object. He says, I'm certain this is a rope. They're arguing, they're not able to come to a conclusion. One man is passing by the city, he's able to see. When he's able to see, he says, gentlemen, what's the problem? They said, we are not able to figure out what is this beast. One is saying it's a wall, one is saying that it's a spear, one is saying it's a snake, one is saying it's a fan, one is saying it's a tree, one is saying it's a rope. The man just smiles and says, I can see why you are saying that. He said, did you think of combining your views together? He said, no. He said, gentlemen, what you have in front of you is an elephant. He said, but everyone who's looking at the vantage point and the perspective that you're looking at it from, you're right. But you didn't put the pieces together. They said, how are we supposed to know that? How did we know to do that? He said, well, this is unfair, this is unjust. The man smiled, the one who could see, and he walked away. As he was walking away, he said, it could have been worse. He said, how? He said, your elephant could have been on the run. How would you assess it then? The idea being scientism, there's no doubt that science has given us many benefits, such as what? Such as antibiotics. Such as we even have hope today with COVID and the uncertainty of COVID, we still have hope that there's going to be a vaccine or some types of treatment or something like this in the next year at least, inshallah, God willing. Or this goes away. We have some hope from science. That science, for example, cardiovascular disease in the last 50 years, there's no doubt how much benefit we have had to understanding the heart, to understanding the mind, to understanding so many aspects of life. However, this is the essence. Science is like the tree or like the foot, or like the tusk, or like the trunk, or like the ear, or like the side, the wall of the elephant. But it's not the whole beast. It's not the whole picture. What is that picture that combines everything together, that combines every aspect of your life together? That is the message of Rasulullah. That is the message of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. That is the message of the Quran. What is that? What is it that Rasulullah was pointing to? What is it that Ahlul Bayt were pointing us towards? And what is it that the Quran points us towards? It is one reality. That is Tawheed. A God-centric world. A God-centric reality, that the picture that ties everything together is God. We're not against science. We're in favor of science. I mentioned this the night before, that some of the greatest scientists came out of the Muslim world. We're not against capitalism. Islam has room for capitalism. There's no doubt about it. We're not against the modern ideas of the modern world. But the question that we're getting at is, and the question I'm trying to ask is, in this developmental world where we have so many benefits of science, we have so many benefits of so many different things, why are we still so unhappy? Because science has succeeded in extending our lives. Economics has succeeded in making us wealthier. But we haven't focused on the heart. And that's why all our happiness we're looking for is on the outside. We have to go back in. We have to go back to the manhaj of the Ahlul Bayt. What does Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam say on the plains of Arafah? He says, my Lord, what has he lost? Who has gained you? And what has he gained? Who has lost you? He's giving a worldview. He's given Jahan Bini, as they call in Farsi. Ru'yat Qawniya in Arabic. You know this Ru'yat al-Hilal, the one that we say you saw the moon of Muharram, you saw the moon of the Eid, for example, in Ramadan, for example, Shahr Ramadan. Ru'yat, that same word, to see. Ru'yat al-Qawniya. What's the worldview? When we come to Islam, Allama Tabatabai says that the next level of analysis view, there are a few things that Islam came forward with, which we're distinguishing. What was it? The first element of the Islamic worldview of Islam is absolute principle of equality. What does that mean? Islam said very clearly and categorically that nobody is better than anyone else, except on the basis of taqwa. That is God consciousness. So, for example, we're told in a moment in time, when Rasulullah came forward, he said that no Arab is better than a non-Arab, and no non-Arab is better than an Arab, except on the basis of taqwa. Do you know what happened as soon as Rasulullah passed away physically from this world? The class system came back into Arabia. It came back into the Muslims. You know, this worldview has an impact. You may say, how? If you go to Hinduism, there's a class system in Hinduism. If you have studied Hinduism, there's a class system. At the top are the Brahmins. These are the scholars class. The next level are the warriors. The third level are the people who are merchants, businessmen. People who are born into this class system and believe in this class system, it impacts how they operate in the world. So if you're a Brahman, you think you are, for example, superior, you're a scholar, something like this. If you are someone, for example, who's born into the second class, which is those people who are warriors, you have a certain view. Or for example, if you are born into the merchant class, you have a belief that God or Vishnu or Brahman or whatever your belief God is, says that I have been chosen to do business. Therefore, it impacts your life. You see the world that way. That's how it impacts your world. What happened in Islam? What happened was, as soon as Rasulullah departed this world physically, what happened at that point in time is the first Khalifa and the second Khalifa and the third Khalifa, they brought back the system of class system. What? They said, Quraysh, we get more. Our tribe gets more Baytul Mal from the public treasury. If I'm from this tribe, Quraysh, Hashim, XYZ, we get the most. And the Aus and the Khajraj and all of these are get more. There was a class system. When Amir al-Mu'mineen, when he took on and the people came to him and they said, Ya Ali, there's no one else to rule. Uthman has been assassinated. We need you to rule. He came forward and he says in his inaugural speech, Amir al-Mu'mineen says, he says that I will tell you very clearly, I will make sure that anyone who's getting more from the Baytul Mal and is not entitled to, I am going to establish absolute equality in terms of who gets money from the public treasury. There's going to be no more class system. I'm going to go back to the position of Rasulullah. Because they told Ali, they said, Ya Ali, you will follow the Quran and you will follow the Sunnah of Rasulullah and you will follow the Sunnah of the first two Khulafa, before, the Khulafa before, the first three. He says, I will follow the Quran. Amir al-Mu'min says, I will follow the Sunnah of Rasulullah. I will not accept the first three. Why? Ya Ali, why? He says, well, it's very clear that if there was anything, I already accepted the Quran and the Sunnah of Rasulullah. Why accepting the Sunnah of the first three Khulafa? That means that the first three Khulafa did something different than what Rasulullah was doing. Otherwise, why would you need to include that? It should be just Sunnah, the Quran and the Sunnah of Rasulullah. What else do you need? He says, no, we're going back to the time of Rasulullah, whether you like it or not. Talha and Zubair couldn't stand it, and the people around it couldn't stand it. What happened? The next day, Amir al-Mu'mineen, he gives 3 dirham, 3 dinar from the Baytul Mal to one person, and he gives 3 to the next. He stands up. He says, Ya Ali, and you gave my slave 3 dinar as well? How dare you? He said, Rasulullah abolished the class system. Rasulullah said, equality. You remember I told you the night before, Arab and Ajam. The Arabs had divided their land between based on people who speak Arabic and those who don't. That's called a linguistic worldview, that you believe that my language is better than others. Islam sought to eradicate this. Islam said no more of this. The first element of Islamic principle is this idea of equality amongst all. Number one. Number two, what's the second element of an Islamic worldview according to Allama Tabatabai? Allama Tabatabai, Sahib Tafsir al-Mizan. He dedicated 40 years of Arif, a spiritual mystery. This is realism. You know, many of our youth and young and old alike, they have questions about Islam. And there are other narratives and worldviews that are pulling them. The answers are within your deen. The answers are within Islam. The answers are within the words of the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. The answers are in the Quran. But we have not looked there. We have not searched for them. Realism. What is realism? Simple example. We're told that 3 women in the time of Rasulullah, they come to Rasulullah, they say, Ya Rasulullah, we have a complaint. Said, what? One woman says, my husband is spending the whole day and the whole night in prayer. He doesn't work. He doesn't do anything else. Rasulullah said, what? He said, yes. Said, what's your complaint? To the second woman, lady, he says. He says, my complaint is my husband does not even wear perfume. He does not even keep up with his hygiene. He's just said, I have nothing to do with this world. Rasulullah, listen to this. Rasulullah, as you know, he had a very, very close affinity to fragrance. They say when he would walk through an alley in Medina, you would smell for 3 days the fragrance of Rasulullah. First, he had a natural fragrance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but also he said that there's no israf, for example, there's no exaggerance, there is no extravagance in atar, or for example, fragrance. He said, very well. He's not keeping up with his hygiene, not using fragrance? Very well. What's the problem? The third one says, my husband separated from me completely from the bed. There's no conjugal relations. There's no relations between us. He's just worshipping. He's completely left the world. The tradition says Rasulullah came forward. He did not even put his aba or his saya on his shoulders properly. He was so upset. He went straight towards the masjid, got on the mimbar. When Rasulullah got on the mimbar at that point in time, we're told, he said, oh people, what is wrong with you? In a sense, I'm paraphrasing the words of Rasulullah. Do I not, for example, do I not work? Do I not spend time with my family? I not have balance? For example, do I not wear fragrance? Do I not spend time with my wives? Do I not do these things? Have you exceeded Rasulullah? He's saying, have you exceeded Rasulullah in your iman? Have you exceeded the Holy Prophet in your belief system? He's correcting them because those 3 husbands of these women, they thought they had the right worldview of what Islam says, but they weren't. The Prophet said very clearly, listen, you're not supposed to spend the whole day and the whole night in worship. No, Islam's about balance. You work, you go to school, you do all of these things. And on top of that, fragrance is part of iman, it's part of the faith, it's part of the belief system. And furthermore, going on top of Rasulullah's perspective, you need to understand that relations, we're not of those people who believe that, for example, to be pious, you must fight the nature of the fitrah what Allah has put in. No. So all of these things must come together. The second element is realism in Islam. Islam does not believe in this idea of cutting yourself off from the world. No. The Ahlul Bayt didn't do this. Am I better than Ali ibn Abi Talib? Hasha lillah, na'udhu billah. Am I better than Hussein ibn Ali? Where are they? Where am I? Islam is about balance. You see, I say this in a time where we come, some people come, who am I to say? I say to myself, we come to the majlis of Sayyid al-Shuhada. We come to the majlis of Abu Abdullah. We come to the masjid of Ahlul Bayt, majlis of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. We cry sometimes, and there's no doubt the position and the status of the crying of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, which we'll come to in a moment. But at the same time, I cry for Abu Fadl al-Abbas. For example, I cry for Ali Akbar, I cry for Qasim, I cry for Zainab. And this is very important, must be revered. But I don't have respect for my own family. I don't have respect for my own loved ones. I don't have respect for the fundamentals and the foundations of Islam. The family structure, the akhlaq structure, all of these elements of the equation, these are so pivotal to our existence and who we are. The third element of the Islamic worldview. What is the third element of the Islamic worldview? Balancing spirituality with rationalism, according to Allama Tabatabai. Balancing spirituality with rationalism. You see, if I tell you that there are certain things that exist, how would you reconcile them? For example, the Quran says in an entire chapter, Suratul Jinn, there are jinn. How do you reconcile this? These big questions about our faith in our life, do we answer them? Or do we just leave them to brew? We just leave them in the back burner and we start losing our belief system and adopting other belief systems. We're told there's a moment in time where one of the jinn, he visits Rasulullah during the time of Islam. He visits. When he visits and he comes forward and he says, he speaks to Rasulullah. He says, "Oh Prophet, I'm from the jinn. I'm from the lineage of Iblis." He says, "Very well. What's your question? What's the issue?" He says, "I have a question for you." So what is it? He says, when that moment in time happened, when God created Adam, when he created Adam, he told Iblis to do sajda, sujood, in prostration, to fall in prostration in front of Adam. Not to worship Adam, but in order to accept the rule of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That Allah said do it, you must do it. He didn't accept. He said, then prophet after prophet came. And prophet after prophet came. And Adam came, and then we saw a light, a nur that came to defend Adam. He says, then after that, Nuh came. And we saw when Nuh came forward, we wanted to attack and we wanted to fight Nuh. When we wanted to attack and we wanted to fight Nuh, then a light and a nur came. And he defended Nuh. Then after time, the next prophets came. Sheath came. And for example, Ibrahim came. And the lines of Ibrahim came. Musa, Isa, all the way to Rasul Adam, all the way to your time. In the heavens, before they came to earth, they came. We wanted to fight them. And then at that point, a nur came. And that nur came to defend every single time. What's your question? Rasulullah says, my question is, what was that nur? Rasulullah looks at him, he says, if you saw it, would you recognize it? He said, yes. Because remember, the jinn have very long lives. The jinn, they even witnessed what happened in Ghadir. That's why jinn, according to our scholars, is either one of two. Either they are a kafir, they are a mu'min. There's no in between. Because either they know Ghadir or they don't know Ghadir. Nonetheless, he says, Rasulullah says, if you would see that nur, would you recognize him? He says, very well. Next to Rasulullah was Ali ibn Abi Talib, looking down towards the ground. Rasulullah takes his hand. He puts it in the chin of Ali ibn Abi Talib. He raises the chin of Ali ibn Abi Talib. He says, look towards this face. He says, the jinn responds. And he says that this face that I have been looking at, this is by God, this is that same nur that I have been seeing defending the prophets one after the other. Allahu Akbar. Ya Rasulullah. Ya Nare Haydari, Haydari, Haydari. कभी आदम कभी मूसा ने पुकारा तुझको, कभी आदम कभी मूसा ने पुकारा तुझको, खिज़र ने और ज़करिया ने पुकारा तुझको, कभी यूशा कभी ईसा ने पुकारा तुझको, खुद ने. The worldview that we adopt, because Ali's worldview is the worldview of Rasulullah. There's no difference. And Rasulullah's worldview is the one that God wanted us to have. That's it. You see, there are things that exist in our world that in our modern material world we cannot fathom, we cannot intellectualize, therefore we reject it. For example, what? You know, there's people in communities across the globe where I've gone, they understand the power of the alam of Abul Fadl Abbas. They understand the power of the zari of Sayyid al-Shuhada. They understand the power of Khaki Shifa, that is the dust under the dome of Sayyid al-Shuhada. How do you explain to someone what is the power of the Ahlul Bayt? That's a worldview. The people who believe in it, they've seen it with their eyes, they've seen it with their heart. How do you transfer that? There's a spiritual world, there's a mystical world that you and I may not understand, but it's there. Allow me to explain. Ayatullah Bahjat, may Allah elevate his status in Jannah. Ayatullah Bahjat narrates, an arif, a mystic, a spiritual person. Our world is starving for spirituality. The people are starving for purpose. Remember the study I shared with you in the beginning. Christians, Jews, Muslims, atheists are going towards spirituality because they're feeling empty, they're feeling unhappy. That spirituality lies in the Quran, in the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. But if you don't accept, what can I do? Understand the following. Ayatullah Bahjat says, he says it's narrated in this was not very long ago. This is narrated amongst the people of Iraq. There were two men. One was Shia family, one was Sunni. They were friends. One person, they would have a joke. You know, sometimes when you have friends, they're sitting together. The Shia says, I'm going for a journey. He says, where are you going? He says, I'm going towards Najaf. So what are you going to do there? He says, I'm going to meet my master, my Mawla, Ali ibn Abi Talib, Amir al-Mu'mineen. He says as a joke, the Sunni says, give him my salams, but not in a respectful way. He says it in a taunting way, in an arrogant way, in a joking way, to punch fun at him. That you're going to say salam to someone who's dead? You're going to say salam to someone who's buried in the ground? What's wrong with you? He said it that way. The Shia says, Ayatollah Bahjat says, the Shia says, I felt this in my heart. It hurt my heart. He says, I went nonetheless to Najaf. He says, I went to Najaf. When I went to Najaf, I got to the Dhari of Amir al-Mu'mineen. I said my salams, and I began to complain to Amir al-Mu'mineen. He says, yeah, Amir al-Mu'mineen, you know, sometimes somebody says something and you feel it. Husband says something to the wife, she feels it. Wife says something to the husband, she feels it. It may be something small, but you know, even in the joke, sometimes there's truth. Sibling says something to sibling, friend says something to friend, it breaks their heart, ruins their day. It hurt that person. Words have impact. Amir al-Mu'mineen says, much sharper than the sword is the tongue. The strike of the, for example, of the sword can heal. The strike of the tongue, you cannot retract it back. You cannot bring it back. Nonetheless, he said it. He said, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen. The Shia says at the shrine of Zariya, he's holding on. He says, Ya Amir, this man said this to me. He's my friend, but it hurt me. Why don't you take care of him? Why don't you show him a lesson? Why don't you tell him something? Ayatollah Bahjat saying. He says that he fell asleep by the Zariya. In his dream, Amir al-Mu'mineen came. So what did he say? He says, oh my Shia, that person who's your friend, who said this tauntingly, who said this arrogantly, and said this, I cannot deal with this person. I cannot punish this person. I cannot do anything to this person. Why, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen? You're Mazharul Ajaib. Nadi Ali, Rasulullah is saying, you are the one who's helping the prophets. You're the ones who's helping everyone. You're not able to help me? He says, no, this person did something that we are indebted to him. What? He says he was in Musayyab. Musayyab, if you know, if you've been to ziyarah, if you've not, may Allah give everyone the tawfiq to go to the ziyarah of Sayyid al-Shuhada and the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. And may Allah rid the world of this virus and this pandemic. We're told Musayyab is where the Tiflan al-Muslim are, if you know. Muslim ibn Aqil, his sons are buried in Musayyab. Musayyab is where the Tigris and the Euphrates meet. Where they meet at that point is where they were from. Amir al-Mu'mineen says, oh my Shia, listen, this man was sitting alone at the banks of the Tigris and the Euphrates. He was sitting by the river where they met, and he was in Musayyab. When he was in Musayyab, he was looking towards the water, and he said, and he thought in his heart and his mind, he says that Umar ibn Sa'ad was wrong. He should have given water to Hussein. He says, when he said this, one teardrop rolled down his eye. One teardrop. He says, for this teardrop, we cannot do anything to this person. We're indebted. The man woke up. he bid his farewell to the Zari of Amir al-Mu'mineen. He went back to Musayyab. When he went back to Musayyab, Ayatollah Bahjat says, when he went back to Musayyab, he met his friend. His friend said, did you go to Najaf? He said, yes, I went to Najaf. He says, did you give my salam to your master? He said, yes, I gave my salam. He said, wa alaykum as-salam. He says, well, what did he say anything else? He said, yes. He said, I asked him to take care of you. I asked him to give you a message. I asked him to teach you a lesson. He said, I can't. He said, what? He said, I can't. Why? He says, because he's indebted to you. Why? Why is he indebted to me? He says, one day, he told me, one day you were sitting on the banks of the Tigris and the Euphrates where they met in Musayyab. You were looking at the water. When you were looking at the water, you had a thought in your mind to yourself that Umar ibn Sa'ad should have given water to Hussein. And one tear rolled down your cheek. One tear rolled down your eye. They said, because of that reason, we cannot punish you in any way. He said, he said that. I said, yes, he said that. He said, there was no one near me. I was alone. There was no one for miles. That was a thought I had in my heart. That's a thought I had in my mind. How did he know? Who is this person? He said, take me to him. He accepted the belief system. You see, the Imam is not a person who deals at the level of A and B, who deals at the material level. The Imam is Zahir even when we think he's Batin. Whether that is Ali ibn Abi Talib or that is Imam Sahib al-Asr wa Zaman. You see, the Imam knows the hearts. The Imam knows the minds. Ask yourself, what's your worldview? How do you see the world? Are you a Muhammadi? How much of your worldview, what percentage is Muhammadi? What percentage is Haydari? What percentage is Husseini? What percentage is based on Tawheed? This is the question that the companions of Imam al-Hussein asked themselves. And that's how they were able to get permanent salvation. We are told that in Kufa, there is a man who understands the worldview. His name is Habib. And how well he was named Habib, the friend. He's sitting down to eat with his wife. When he's sitting down to eat, we're told, there's a knock on the door. When there's a knock on the door, as you know, it's customary that you are not to get up when you're eating. He asks, who is it? He says, I am the messenger of Hussein, the qasid of Hussein. The narration says it's as if the morsel of food gets stuck in the throat of Habib. He gets up. He proceeds towards the door. When he gets towards the door, he opens the door. He takes the letter. He kisses the letter. He puts it to his eyes. He hugs it. He embraces it. It's from his master. It's from his Mawla. Why was this so important? Because the hearts are connected. Why? Because in Karbala, Sayyidah Zainab, she's looking at the army on the other side and she says, my brother Hussein, every day I am seeing that the army on the other side is increasing. I'm noticing that more and more people are coming on the other side. Is there anyone to come to your aid? Is there anyone to come to our assistance? Who will help us? The answer is in the letter. At that point in time, Habib in Kufa, he gets this letter, he hugs it, he puts it to his chest, he opens the letter. It says what? It says, Ila rajulin faqih, Habib ibn Madhahir, towards a just jurist, Habib ibn Madhahir. He says what? What does it say? It says, Habib, I have been circulated, I have been surrounded by the enemy. If you are able to help me, if you are able to assist me, come to my assistance. Allahu Akbar. Sayyid al-Shuhada is saying, Habib, if you're able to assist me, come assist me. At that point in time, the wife of Habib says that, oh Habib, what does the letter say? What's going on? What does it say? It's a letter. From who? From my master Imam al-Hussein. What does it say? It says, Habib, I am in trouble. I am in a difficulty. If you can help me, help me. Now, Habib, he knows what he wants to do, but he knows that his wife also has a heart. She also has a heart. And she asks, oh Habib, what do you intend to do? What's your plan? What's your goal? What do you want to do? He says, I don't know. I will see. He's checking his wife. At that point in time, she looks right back at him and she says, listen, if you're going to think about it, if you're going to contemplate on it, and if you're worried, give me your your shield, give me your armor, give me your sword, and I will go and defend Hussein. Habib's eyes begin to water. He begins to cry. He says, my Mawla, my master, how mazloom have you become that the women are willing to go defend you? Ajrukum ala Allah, ajrukum ala Allah. We're told there's a moment in time where Habib, he cannot leave right away. He can't leave the city right away because there's a curfew, there's a blockade. You can't leave easily. He told his servant, and he put the servant with a horse, and he put the horse and the servant at the edge of the city, right by the gate. And he said, wait for me in the night. I will come in the middle of the night, get on the horse and go towards Sayyid al-Shuhada. In the middle of the night, Habib, he goes very quietly. He approaches towards the horse. He approaches towards the servant who's there. He hears a dialogue between the servant and the horse. The servant is saying to the horse, it seems my master is becoming delayed. He's becoming late. If he does not arrive, I will get on the horse and I will go to Sayyid al-Shuhada. I will go with you. Habib began to cry again. He said, my master, my Mawla, the servants are willing to sacrifice the life. It was as if he could smell the mazlumiyat of Sayyid al-Shuhada in Kufa from Karbala. Habib gets on the horse. He races towards the tents and he races towards Karbala. In the distance, Imam al-Hussein, he sees the horse coming. He says, Abbas, Ali Akbar, my friend is coming, go and greet him. Habib comes towards the camp. When he comes towards the camp, the companions gather around Habib. It's an old friend. When they all get around him, there is jubilance, the joy for just even a moment in the camp of Imam al-Hussein. An old friend has come. At that point in time, there are takbir that are in the air. People are saying Allahu Akbar. Sayyida Zainab is in the tent. Sayyida Zainab, she hears this and she says, after so many days, there's been one sign of seemingly joy. What happened? She says, Ali Akbar, come here. What is going on? At that point in time, Ali Akbar says, my aunt Zainab, Habib has arrived. The old friend of Imam al-Hussein has arrived. She said, Ali Akbar, send my salam. Or in some traditions, they say Fizza sent it. In the Arab world, they say Ali Akbar sent it. She says, send my salam to Habib. Ali Akbar goes and says, Habib, Sayyida Zainab, the daughter of Ali ibn Abi Talib, she sends her salams to you. Habib takes his amama, he throws it on the ground. He says, what day of ghurba, what day of mazlumiyat, how, why the daughters of Ali ibn Abi Talib, they send their salams on the servants of Ali ibn Abi Talib. At that point in time, Habib goes on the day of Ashura. After much delay, he's given the permission. He goes towards the battlefield and he goes and fights the enemies. Habib had become elder. They say he had to tie his back to fight. When he had to tie his back to fight, we're told he struck left and he struck right. When he struck the enemy in every way, they say Habib was finally surrounded. They attacked him. This elderly man, he fell towards the ground. When he fell towards the ground, before Sayyid al-Shuhada, they say the other companions arrived by Habib. They gathered there and they said at this point in time, there's conversations. And in some traditions, they say some companion said, do you have any final wish, any final concern? They say, Usikum bihada, pointing towards Sayyid al-Shuhada. What is the statement? Take care of this one. Take care of him. Take care of the son of Fatima al-Zahra. Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, he takes the body of his friend, and he takes him. How many bodies did Sayyid al-Shuhada raise? But I ask the questions, O Ansar Husseini, O companions of Imam al-Hussein, you were able to say, Usikum bihada, take care of the son of Fatima. Magar आइए शब आशूर अब कोई न रहा
سیدہ زینب اکیلی رہ گئی، عباس القما کے کنارے سو رہے ہیں، زینب کس کو پکارے؟ روایتوں میں ملتا ہے کہ کوئی نہ ملا، 70 قدم دور قلعہ زینبیہ پہ بی بی زینب نے کس کو پکارا؟ جلال میں کہو اے پسر سعد، میرا ماجا ذبح ہو رہا ہے اور تو کہاں دیکھ رہا ہے؟
صلی اللہ علیہ یا رسول اللہ، صلی اللہ علیہ یا امیر المؤمنین، صلی اللہ علیہ یا فاطمة الزہراء سیدۃ النساء العالمین، صلی اللہ علیہ یا حسن المجتبى، السلام علی الحسین وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين، خصوصا Habib ibn Madhahir. Ya Allah, we ask you to bless these tears. Allow these tears to be a witness for us on Yawm al-Qiyamah. Ya Allah, anyone who has a hajat in this night by the tears of for Sayyid al-Shuhada and his companions and his family, grant them their hajat in this night. Ya Allah, alleviate us from this pandemic. Those who have asked for dua, those who are ill, those who are not well, grant them shifa. Ya Allah, by Habib ibn Madhahir, by the companions of Imam al-Hussein and the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. Ya Allah, hasten the reappearance of Imam Sahib al-Asr wa Zaman. Allow us to be his companions when he returns. Ma'tam Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein.
Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Hussein.
Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein.
کہتے شاہ ہدا اے میرے پیارے حبیب، کہتے شاہ ہدا اے میرے پیارے حبیب، لے گئے تم بھی فراق میرے پیارے حبیب، کہتے شاہ ہدا اے میرے پیارے حبیب، کہتے شاہ ہدا اے میرے پیارے حبیب، لے گئے تم بھی فراق میرے پیارے حبیب، سینے پہ نیزہ لگے سینکڑوں صدمے سہے، سینے پہ نیزہ لگے سینکڑوں صدمے سہے، ساتھ نہ چھوڑا میرا اے میرے پیارے حبیب، کہتے تھے شاہ ہدا اے پیارے حبیب، کہتے تھے شاہ ہدا اے میرے پیارے حبیب، دے گئے تم بھی فراق اے میرے پیارے حبیب، ہائے یہ تیری وفا بھولیں گا کیوں کربلا، ہائے یہ تیری وفا بھولیں گا کیوں کربلا، مجھ پہ ہے احسان تیرا اے میرے پیارے حبیب، کہتے تھے شاہ ہدا اے میرے پیارے حبیب، کہتے تھے شاہ ہوا اے میرے پیارے حبیب، دے گئے تم بھی فراق اے میرے پیارے حبیب، ایسی کنارہ کشی سچے محبت نہ تھی، ایسی کنارہ کشی سچے محبت نہ تھی، دوست پہ یہ کیا ہوا اے میرے پیارے حبیب، کہتے تھے خدا اے میرے پیارے حبیب، کہتے تھے شاہ خدا اے میرے حبیب دے گئے تم بھی فراق میرے پیارے حبیب ساتھ ہمیشہ رہے ساتھ نہ لیتے گئے ساتھ ہمیشہ رہے ساتھ نہ لیتے گئے تم کو یہ لازم نہ تھا اے میرے پیارے حبیب کہتے تھے شاہ اے میرے پیارے حبیب کہتے تھے شاہ خدا اے میرے پیارے حبیب دے گئے تم بھی فراق میرے پیارے حبیب یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین حسین یا حسین تمام عالم میں آج ماتم تمام عالم میں آج ماتم حسین بے کس کا ہو رہا ہے تمام عالم میں آج ماتم تمام عالم میں آج ماتم حسین بے کس کا ہو رہا ہے علم گھروں میں سجے ہوئے ہیں علم گھروں میں سجے ہوئے ہیں دلوں میں فرش عزا بچھا ہے تمام عالم میں آج ماتم حسین بے کس کا ہو رہا ہے سیاہ کپڑے سیاہ چادر غموں کی گرد و غبار سر پر سیاہ کپڑے سیاہ چادر غموں کی گرد و غبار سر پر ہے سوگواروں کے اشک جاری ہے سوگواروں کے اشک جاری کہ ثانی زہرا بیدا ہے تمام عالم میں ماتم تمام عالم میں آج ماتم حسین بے کس کا ہو رہا ہے نہ چشم پورنم وہ کیوں سوالی جلوس ہے جنا خالی نہ چشم پورنم وہ کیوں سوالی جلوس ہے جنا خالی کہ میرا دلدل سوار مولا کہ میرا دلدل سوار مولا زمین کربول میں سو رہا ہے تمام عالم میں آج ماتم تمام عالم میں آج ماتم حسین بے کس کا ہو رہا ہے علم میں ماشے سکینہ دیکھو تو مومنو بس یہ کہہ رو لو علم میں مسکے سکینہ دیکھو تو مومنو بس یہ کہہ کے رو لو چچا بتیجی میں کیا ہے نسبت چچا بتیجی میں کیا ہے نسبت وفائے عباس کیا وفا ہے تمام عالم میں آج ماتم تمام عالم میں آج ماتم حسین بے کس کا ہو رہا ہے حسین پیری میں دل سنبھالے کہ دل سے اجڑی سینہ نکالے حسین پیری میں دل سنبھالے کہ دل سے اجڑی سینہ نکالے جوان بیٹا لہو میں ڈوبا جوان بیٹا لہو میں ڈوبا زمین پہ آڑی لگا رہا ہے تمام عالم میں آج ماتم تمام عالم میں آج ماتم حسین بے کاش کا ہو رہا ہے حسین شہید کربلا ویلا حسین شہید
کربلا وویلا
حسین امام مظلوم ویلا شہید کربلا ویلا آیت برس کربلا ویلا
حسین شہید کربلا وویلا
رسوائی و ملال و مرض سے گناہ سے سب کو بچا لے تجھ کو 72 کا واسطہ سب کو بچا لے تجھ کو 72 کا واسطہ رسوائی و ملال و مرض سے گناہ سے سب کو بچا لے تجھ کو 72 کا واسطہ ہر مستجاب سب کی ہماری تو یہ دعا فریاد آہ زینب مستر کا واسطہ ساما شتاب کر دے میرے دل کے چین کا پروردگار واسطہ مولا حسین کا دنیا یہ نہ ہوگی مگر اسلام رہے گا دنیا یہ نہ ہوگی مگر اسلام رہے گا شبیر بہرحال تیرا نام رہے گا یا موسی کاظم ہمیں آفت سے چھڑاؤ یا موسی کاظم ہمیں آفت سے چھڑاؤ بہر حسن حسین مصیبت سے بچاؤ سورۃ مبارکۃ الفاتحہ
السلام عليك يا رسول الله السلام عليك يا نبي الله السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدتي نساء العالمين السلام عليك يا حسن المجتبى السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله الحسين وعلى 9 المأسومين من ذريتك علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي السلام عليك يا صاحب الأسر والزمان سيدي الأمان 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 من فتنة الزمان السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن السلام عليك يا كعبة الإيمان السلام عليك يا إمامنا وإمام الإنس والجان عجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل الله تعالى مخرجك وظهورك ورحمة الله وبركاته